Thank you so much, Phemelo. And, just looking at some of your comments coming through still regarding the budget speech, and many of you really weighing in very strategically on this question that we asked you this morning, and Leanne also discussing these matters with her guests there in Parliament. And many of you talking about the unemployment question and education, as opposed to perhaps things like Eskom, which really speaks to where we are as a nation. But let me just read a few before I throw over to Leanne. This one from Gafar Viljoen Kukamoor says, South African economy can lose 500 billion in 2 days because of President Zuma, but it's unable to create jobs. Nah, whoa, wait on that one. And then this one here is coming through from Tony Yengeni. Tony Yengeni says, the poor pay more tax than the rich. This is absolutely outrageous. A substantial wealth tax has to be imposed on the rich, and that will bring about another form of state revenue. Borrowing from the World Bank and IMF, not an option. That money is too expensive. And perhaps let's give the final one here to Ranto, who says Mbowene's focus should be on job saving. That is no privacy or privatization and IPPs whatsoever. Ramaphosa must stop wasting millions on endless commissions full of allegations and recede poetry, but no conviction and no money being recovered. It's wastage. Big business tax should be 51%. So there seems to be, at least from these few tweets, also some consensus that business ought to be taxed more. But let's go back to Parliament now, where Leanne is standing by to get more views in terms of our preview of the budget speech this morning. So it's over to you in Parliament, Leanne.
Thanks very much, Sakina. So interesting to hear the views of South Africans as they get back to us on Twitter and talk to us about what they're hoping to hear in Budget 2019. Well, let's get straight into my next interview now, because the unions are always the ones that are very much so at the heart of the repercussions, because they represent the workers, and whatever happens and is said in the budget, it certainly does affect workers in every which way, whether it be in their pockets directly or what they buy, you name it, what they earn. Everybody gets affected by this. So let's talk to Mike Shingange. He, of course, is the Deputy President of Cosatu. And you will remember it was earlier this month, after the announcement that Eskom was going to be split into 3 different entities, and the talk of possibly unbundling Eskom, that they would bring South Africa to a shutdown if in fact that did happen. But let's ask Mike for his expectations today. Good to have you. Thanks so much for joining us.
Good morning, Leon, and your viewers.
I suppose the best place to begin is with your expectations. What are you expecting to hear?
Well, you don't want to be Tito Mboweni today, and I mean it's a very anticipated budget speech today, given the state of our economy. But of course, you cannot. What is uppermost in the minds of our people is how we're going to fix our SOEs, because our belief as Cosatu is that the SOEs are actually the only leverage that the state has to actually intervene in the economy. We have seen over the past the SOEs being bleeding billions and billions of rands, and today we cannot avoid but to expect the Minister of Finance to see how he's going to rescue Eskom, because Eskom is a fuel of our economy in this country. But over and above that, it is a plan of to what extent are we going to make them better governed and better managed, and particularly at the financial level. But secondly, you know that over the past years, AG has discovered that 10% of the provincial, national and local government is being lost through looting. In our view, you don't even have to increase tax. If you fix that, if you fix the fact that the 10%, which runs to hundreds of billions, are lost in the system in terms of the annually, in terms of the looting, then we can have a proper fiscus that is going to deliver a service to our people. And thirdly, we're looking at how we're going to grow economy. Yeah. This is the first budget speech after the president have convened a presidential job summit, an investment summit, in which many plans to protect jobs and create more jobs have been agreed. We will want to hear the plans of the Minister of Finance on how is that going to implement those framework agreement that has been committed in those meetings.
I want to talk to you about your reaction to if today we hear coming out of the Finance Minister, and again this is speculation, that a part of Eskom is going to be privatized, or that's the route that the minister says, look, our hands are tied, we don't have the money to keep on going at Eskom. What will your reaction be? What will you as a union do?
Well, first our view is that the Minister of Finance is a minister in the cabinet of President Ramaphosa. And President Ramaphosa has spoken to the nation on numerous occasions. Recently, it was in the SONA. Previously, it was in the manifesto that he said to South Africans, this is where the ruling party is going. None of his speeches spoke about privatization. We will be very surprised, first and foremost, if the treasurer will speak privatization when the state president has not raised so, when the ruling party has not said so. Secondly, we don't think that private institutions themselves are a solution to the problem of the economy in this country. In fact, this notion that, for instance, if we talk about Eskom, electricity is going to be cheaper when you privatize it, it's actually a myth. Look at elsewhere, particularly when you go to banks, when you go to construction industry, how they monopolize and collude and fix prices. What more if the electricity is going to be in the hands of private hands? We don't believe that Eskom should be privatized, and we're going to be very, very, very surprised in our view if that happens.
If in fact it happens.
From where we stand, it's not in keeping with the State of the Nation address. It's not keeping with the manifesto that is going out there to ask the people of South Africa to vote for the ANC because this is what they're going to deal with. There's no privatization in that manifesto. So we'll be very surprised if Treasury becomes an independent ministry outside the government as a whole.
So in terms of the overstaffing at Eskom, because many are saying that it is too overstaffed, there are too many people working there, there has to be a change. In order to save going forward, you need to unfortunately eliminate now. And that is, it seems to be an overall perspective. Obviously the unions, your job is to protect the workers' rights. But can you see the logic in that or not?
No, we don't see the logic. In fact, it's an overwhelming logic from everyone else. But there's no one who's talking about holding those who have plundered Eskom accountable. There's no one who's talking about seizing the assets of those who have looted billions of rands. There's no one who's talking arresting and prosecuting those who have. Everything that is been said now is about going to the victims of Eskom. The workers are the victims of these corruptions. They can't be the ones who must pay the prices. But secondly, the population of this country is growing. Eskom is a state-owned institution. It's supposed to service the more than 57 millions of this country. How on earth do you think that it must service with a fewer staffing? We don't think the problem is the understaffing. The problem is on the operational. The problem is on the management. The problem is the financial management and the governance of Eskom. We don't think Eskom, just like any other state-owned enterprise, is overbloated. But thirdly, if at the end of the day there will be that eventuality, there's somewhere that we must start. You must start at the managerial level. We are told today that there are about 600 management in Eskom when they were just 30-something a few years ago. So obviously it has been plotted at that level of the management. That's one. But two, because they are now talking something of creating three entities, you must talk about the reskilling and replacing those people. Retrenchment of workers in any situation is supposed to come not as an easy like that. It's supposed to come as a last resort.
Unbundling of Eskom, you have threatened this before. You have said that, and you've been quoted, that you will take your support away from the ANC if this is the route that they decide to go. Does that threat still stand?
No, well, it's not a threat. All we are saying is that the workers cannot be expected to vote against their interest. Our support for the ANC is not a one-issue based. We support for the ANC over a whole range of issues, so it's not just one matter. But what we are saying is that you can't expect workers to vote against their interest. It's not in the interest of workers that there must be job losses brought about by their own government. It's not in the interest of workers that electricity must be unaffordable, because when you unbundle, you put some aspect of Eskom into the private hands. Obviously, electricity is not going to be affordable to the poor community of that country. It's not in the interest of workers that you must lose job, you must privatize, you must. So, when we talk about voting, and not that we are threatening to take out, but we are saying it will be difficult to go to the Eskom workers and say, it is in your interest to vote for people who wants to take you out of your job, who want to plunge you to add to the more than 10 million people that are not employed in this country, to add into already 38% of unemployment in this country. It's not in our interest.
Mike, in 30 seconds, what must the minister do? What must the minister do to fix Eskom?
we are agreeing that the national grid must be bailed out. So our view is that we expect the minister to put money there to make sure that we keep the lights on, to make sure that as a matter of immediate effect. But more than that, they must put proper plans in terms of management, must proper plan of sorting out the boss there, proper plan in terms of making sure that there's a proper governance in that. That's what he must do. But also he must today announce steps that are going to be taken to those who have looted. There are many people that are known, that are uncovered in the commissions of inquiry, but we have yet to see one of them action. That's what we're looking, because we must put confidence back to the people that the state is doing something about it.
Mike, thanks for talking to us. Mike Shingange is the Deputy President of Cosatu, talking to us ahead of the budget that will be announced this afternoon by Finance Minister Tito Mboweni, and you can see their concern here is mostly about Eskom. I'm not sure they can think of anything else at this point, but neither can other South Africans either. Let's take a break. One last interview after this.